here's this document called an American passport. I don't want it. I want to become an Indian citizen.
Meet Jamie. Born and raised in India to American parents, he studied in the US. But when it came to passports, he chose Indian over American. Sometime later, Jamie left a corporate career to pursue journalism, acting, and YouTube. He shared why he chose India over America for life, what growing up white in India really felt like, and what shocked him most in America after living in India. I'm Max Chernov, your insider to Immigrant Life. चलो।
तो दोस्तों, अमेरिका में 6 साल बिताकर मेरे लिए वापस इंडिया आना एक बहुत ही इजी डिसीजन था, क्योंकि मैंने यहाँ पे जन्म लिया था। जो इंडियन कल्चर है, जो इंडियन लोग हैं, जो खाना है, जो पीना है, मैं उस सारी चीजों से वाकिफ था। सो मेरे लिए बहुत ही इजी डिसीजन था अमेरिका को छोड़ के वापस इंडिया आना। I just said, as a person who understood to a certain level the American culture, having spent 6 years there, it was not that difficult for me to say goodbye to that life, because I was going back to the country of my birth, a country which I could identify with, the culture, the people, the food. So it just made my life, my decision very easy.
Jamie, your story is like fascinating. It's very unique. I mean, do you know any other like white people with Indian citizenship?
There are literally two I can think of, but for the benefit of your audience, when my parents and my mother also spent a lot of time in India growing up, when they were growing up, it was actually not that uncommon as it is now, because you understand a lot of missionaries, Americans, British, Australians, Canadians, New Zealanders, you name it, they were coming there. So if maybe not all of them came as far back as my father's family did, but if you imagine a lot of white people, Americans, Brits, Canadians, Australians, born in India, speaking Hindi, so when they grew up, my mom and dad, it was not that uncommon. But yes, definitely, I don't know anybody else from that generation who stayed back and also who got Indian citizenship. My father was in his mid 20s, I believe, when he realized that, look, he was unique, as you've also pointed out, and that uniqueness was that he could not identify, he could not connect with the America of his family, the America of which he knew things. He had all his relatives there. They would go back every 5 years for something called furlough. But that inability to connect with his home country was what made him literally walk into the American consulate in Mumbai in the 70s and say, here's this document called an American passport. I don't want it. I want to become an Indian citizen. I don't have proof, Max, but I would say he's probably the first American person to say, here's an American passport and I don't want it. And then me being born here as well, I also had a choice. I went for the Indian passport. All of my relatives on my family side have at some point spent time in India. A lot of them were born here, but nobody gave up their US citizenship. They all kept it. A lot of them still come every year. A lot of them still spend half the years, be it Goa, be it Missouri. But apart from my father and I, nobody actually has an Indian passport. So very unique indeed.
Yeah, very unique. And you couldn't keep both passports,
No,
right?
India still does not recognize dual citizenship with the US. And the way the US is going now under Donald Trump, I don't see it happening for a long time, to be honest with you.
And by birth, you could choose either to become American or Indian.
It's an interesting story. I'll try and keep it as brief. So when I was born in 1981, both my father and mother, first time parents, didn't quite know what the situation was. So they asked around and they were told, look, the mother has an American passport, the father has relinquished the US passport, so he had an Indian passport. Where do you see your son spending the next 18 years? Until he becomes of legal age, where's he going to be? So they both said, yeah, well, we think it's going to be here. So the advice given to them by people in the system and their inner circle was, until Jamie turns 18, if you think he's going to be here, let him give him the Indian passport. It'll be easier for him for the next 18 years. He won't have to go every few years and get it changed and all that jazz. When he's 18 of legal age, he can opt for the American passport. It sounded so simple, Max, to these two naive first time parents. Fast forward to 1999 when I turned 18. we just assume, hey, this kid's going to become an American citizen. So we walk into the American embassy here in New Delhi, and the person behind the counter is like, yeah, you haven't heard that law was changed a few years ago. And literally, my mother's world just came crashing down. There was no internet. How are you going to know unless somebody from the embassy calls you and says, hey, look, Mrs. Alter, the law has changed? You're not going to know. What was the law change? I'm guessing you're wondering. Both parents, I mean, just get the absurdness of the situation. Both parents had to have spent a precise number of years, months, weeks, and days in the US in order for their kid to get American citizenship. And as you can imagine, my father was so far behind because he hadn't lived there since he was a kid. And my mother was short by like literally 12 or 13 months. So that poor sweet lady had to give up her job for a year. She's a teacher in Mumbai, still is to this day. She had to go to the States, establish what they call domicile for 12 months in order to fulfill the criteria. As soon as that was done, I could then apply not for American citizenship, but for a green card. And when you apply for a green card, you yourself have to spend a minimum of 5 years, which I did. I spent 6 years. After the said 5 years, you then go through a whole process where if you're eligible and the government feels you're the right candidate, then of course that green card at some point becomes American citizenship. But by that time, I was disillusioned with America under George W. Bush. I, like my father many years ago, I was homesick, and I also felt that America was not perhaps the place for me. So in 2005, at the age of 24, I came back from the US. I still had the green card, but to keep it active, Max, you have to go back every 6 months, and I was not able to do that. So due to my own foolishness, that also lapsed. And I think to this day, my mom is still she's made peace with the fact, but I think she's a bit disappointed that at least I didn't have it. But my younger sister is an American citizenship. She lives there. She has no plans of coming back. She has two kids there. So my mom is happy that at least one person sort of went down the American route. Yeah, yeah.
How's you growing up in India? Do you remember a moment when you like, oh, why I look like different from other kids?
Many, 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 many times. And it's very, very natural. Let's talk more about the Missouri. Missouri is a small hill station up in the Himalayas where there's a school called Woodstock School, and that's the school where my parents, my father, almost all his cousins, his siblings, my mother, her two brothers, they went there. So, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, in fact, it was very, very common for that school to be full of white people speaking a mixture of English and Hindi. So when I was growing up, Max, of course, by the time I was born and I was going to Woodstock, things had changed. All the missionaries had gone back. It was a global school, but it was still a very Indian school. So a lot more Indians were there. So I didn't actually stand out as much as I would have had I gone to a traditional, how do I say it? Indian school. So I didn't feel it so much growing up in Missouri. But then when I came to Mumbai, a lot less white people in our circle.
What age were you?
I did 3 stints at that school. My first time I was in grade one, so I would have been what, like 5, and then second time in grade 5, and then middle school. So I think if we focus on middle school, that's grade 6, 7, 8, which are the teenage years. Those were rough because I sort of felt like I stood out more because yes, this was an American school, it was an international school, but there was nobody like me. There was nobody else with my sensibilities. They were all white kids, they were all black kids, they were all Chinese kids, Korean kids, Middle Eastern kids. But none of them really felt at home in India. And here I was. I spoke Hindi. I ate Indian food. But then when I rocked up Monday to Friday at that school, the same school, mind you, that my mother started, I got looks from people. I got looks from the people who I sat with, just because they're like, "But you look like us, but you're not." So I think had I got more of the looks from the average Indian on the road, which I got, but it was a very weird feeling to get looks from people who I thought were my friends. It wasn't necessarily like a bad thing, but it was a weird thing. And I mean, we've all been teenagers. I think that's the toughest years for everyone. Your body's changing, you're changing hormones. So those 3 years were really strange for me. I remember I told my parents towards the end of middle school, I said, you know what? just get me out of here. Just pay what you have to. Get me back to that boarding school in Missouri. Get me back to Woodstock. I just felt less judged when I was there. And they agreed. So I spent my last 4 years of school at Woodstock in an environment where I just felt at home, you know. But of course, when I left the school campus, when I walked into the main market, the main bazaar to order food, to order a Coke, a Diet Pepsi, samosa, Chinese, whatever it is, and I speak in Hindi, I was getting looks, you know, and I still do. So probably, I mean, if I'm honest with you, probably a day doesn't go by like you've been to India, you've seen the rise of a lot of these online home delivery. There's Swiggy, there's Zomato, you know. So if I'm ordering groceries or I'm ordering food a couple times a week, the guy who rings the bell, he doesn't assume that the door is going to be opened by a white guy who says to him, "Thank you very much. Have a good day." You know, so I get that a lot, but it doesn't bother me nearly as it did before. Like I said, when I was a teenager and everything. I think everything seems to piss you off when you're a teenager, but definitely being stared at, being asked the question, "Oh, how do you speak Hindi? Are you actually speaking Hindi?" Nowadays, because we spend, and you know about this, we spend so much time in front of the camera making videos, and it's the day of AI. A lot of people actually believe that when they're seeing me in a reel or in a YouTube video, this is AI. And I keep saying, look, AI is good, but AI cannot be this good, you know? So, yeah.
When you had like when you were a teenager, you had this looks, but then okay, you start talking with people like with locals, you start speaking Hindi, and then the attitude will change, I guess.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's a very good question you've asked. It changes immediately and it changes to one of familiarity, acceptance. You know, I mean, you've been to India. You know, India's extremely accepting on so many levels to foreigners. But when they realize that this guy we're talking to, interacting with, he's actually not a foreigner, he's one of us, boom, whatever awkwardness, whatever, it's not hostility, it's just the awkwardness they had or the doubts they had about this guy, it falls, and then it's like boom. And I keep saying, you see, but again, I have to understand, I look like you, I don't look like the average Indian, right? So I understand where that inquisitiveness came from Indians. Yeah.
And then when you finish high school in India, you went to the US, right?
I did a 3.5 year course there. And I'll tell you, it's nothing new. I've said this before to people. It was actually as bizarre as it was, here. Because look, and this, I think this is what actually shaped, Max, my decision to come back. We've ticked off the fact that I'm unique, rare, whatever you want to say it, right? I had a choice. Do you want to be stared at? Do you want to be looked at? Do you want to be questioned in India, where you were born and raised? Or do you want to be stared at, questioned, looked at, whatever? In America, which has a lot of things going for it, it's the land of opportunity, it's the land of milk and honey and all that good stuff. I'm talking about 25 years ago. But you're gonna stand out, and by stand out with my accent, it's a strange one. It's not necessarily a full blown Indian accent. It's definitely not American. It's not British, but Indians can pick it up. The average American, I'm really sorry for making a judgment here. The average American, Max, they still can't figure me out. So be it Starbucks, be it Panera Bread, be it any restaurant, to this day, when I go and I ask for a latte or I ask for a sandwich or I ask for anything, right? Sorry, what? Can you say it again? So can you imagine having to do this time and time again? So I've been asked, are you Dutch? Are you Scandinavian? Are you Russian? Are you Scottish? Are you British? And I just laugh because I know what a Russian accent sounds like. I know what a Dutch accent sounds like. I know what a Scottish accent sounds like. I know what an English accent sounds like. And I don't have that. You're talking to me. I don't have any of those accents. But to hear this, a dozen and a half times a week in the US, I said, you know what? Screw this. I'm going back to India. I can explain myself in a much quicker time to the average Indian, and they'll accept me within 3 minutes as compared to the US. So it was a fantastic, fun 6 years. I had a lot of fun times. I worked there. I have a lot of great connections there. But I was like, man, this is a very strange place to be. So 24, not that old. I said, I'm done. I'm going back to the country of my birth.
Hey, I've launched this Telegram channel where I'll be sharing insights from my guests, travel tips around Asia, and also my thoughts about YouTube, marketing, business, and even life. It will be cozy, personal, and free of charge. So join me, just scan this QR code on the screen or click the link in description, and I'll see you there.
How was your like general feelings about being in the US?
The America that I said goodbye to in 2004 was still in America, which I could sort of connect. Like when I went there last year, I mean, okay, Donald Trump had not been voted back in, but you could sense the election was coming. I spoke to a lot of friends on the phone who I'd gone to college with. I'm talking about Indians, Pakistanis, Zimbabweans, some people from Nepal, the South Asians who, unlike me, had stayed on. They were worried about what was happening. A few of my relatives were like, oh, it's not the America that we grew up in. Again, I'm giving you a glimpse. I was there for what, 5 days, but on the outside, it's the same thing because you're flying into JFK, you're getting a cab, you're seeing all the same commercial things, you're seeing all the same consumerism aspects. Like my first meal is always a burger when I get there for obvious reason. So I was doing the same things, but I could sense that the America that I'd said goodbye to in 2005 was not the one of 2024. But again, I was just in two states. I didn't travel much because I was there on work. I'm probably going back there in a few months and spending 2 or 3 weeks with family. So maybe if this question were asked to me at the end of the year or at the start of the new year, I could probably give you a more nuanced or detailed answer.
This consumerism thing that you mentioned. Like I talked to my buddy, he lived in Singapore before, American guy, my good friend. Then he moved to Dublin, and then we talked recently, and they just came back from the US, and he said like it's so strange. Everything is you go to Walmart and you can buy anything, anything possible. Like there are millions of sorts of anything. So the consumerism is just in your face there.
That's a Again, I'll keep it very brief. Having the American connection, Max, having gone to America every 3, 4 years growing up, I had a sense of that. But I can tell you, when I went back for college, I was one of the few ones who had a car. So I would take my Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Sri Lankan, Nepali friends to Walmart, right? If you've never seen a place like Walmart, and I'm talking about Walmart of the American Midwest, in the middle of nowhere, Ohio, okay? They were blown away by exactly what you said. There's a frozen food section, which then merges with the dry fruit section. You know where I'm going with this, which then merges with the hardware and the clothes and then the guns. So a father can be buying a gun, and 2 aisles down, he could be buying like a toy fish or a toy Superman for his kid. So if you've not seen that, that sense of American consumerism can really blow your head. So I'm glad I had that awakening before, because I would have been really not confused, but like maybe like, it would have made me feel strange had I been 18, 19 for the first time seeing that. So, and I'm sure a lot of people still to this day, look, it's great. You can get everything under the one roof. So you don't have to go to 10 shops. You get in your car, you go to Costco, you go to Walmart, you go to, I don't know what's around nowadays. But it's a great thing about America, but it's also a very strange thing about America as well.
I remember that I was there as a student when I was 20 year old. I came from Russia, and I remember this huge cap of like Coke or Pepsi. It's like 2 liter cap with a free refill, and we were poor back then, and we were like, okay, let's do like number of refills. But like thinking about it is actually how much sugar I consumed back then.
I'm like, I came from India. I came from an Indian boarding school. I was scrawny, okay? There's something called the freshman 15, which is a common term because kids put on 15 pounds, in the first 6 months. Max, the same thing. And forget going to the movie. Like our campus, like the cafeteria would give you refills. So there's Coke, there's Dr. Pepper, there's Sprite. I'm this chronic, so I put on 15 pounds in the first 2 months because I'm like gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. So I had to work hard to lose. I didn't lose that weight over the next 3 years, but it was just like, oh, I get more. It's free. So I totally get that what you're saying.
Did you pick up any like American accent living there?
Oh, I tried, man. I tried really hard, and I thought I could do it, but I sounded like probably like some. broken down robot. I still get, because since the pandemic, I've done some acting now and then. I still get roles where they want me to play an American, and somehow I might get very close, Max, in the audition. But let's say I'm on the set and it's not a good day. Cut, 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 cut. Sir, what accent is this? And I'm like, oh, so it's in my head, I might sound like I'm from New York or Chicago or somewhere, but clearly to the guy in front. And I'm not even talking about Americans. I'm talking about like Indian directors saying, sir, what is this? My son, he's 11, because he spent most of his life like watching YouTube. His American accent at the age of 7 was so far better than anything I could try, So yeah, but to answer your question, I tried a lot to fit in, but yeah, not very good.
Some people think I just show up at the guest place, press record, and that's it, the video is done. But right now 6 people work full-time and 2 part-time on this project. It takes a lot of time, energy and money. Some interviews takes months to secure, but we do it because we want to show the world that Asia is a modern, exciting and inspiring place, and to introduce you to the most interesting people out there. If that resonates with you, I'd love for you to become an even bigger part of this project. By clicking the join button below, you'll become an official member and supporter of this channel. You'll get a special badge, I'll see your comments first, and you will know that you are helping us keep this going. Big hug to each of you, thank you so much for your support, and honestly, you are the best YouTube community I could ever dream of. Thank you so much.
When you are and were in the US, like, and talking to like Westerners, maybe who never been to India, talking to Americans, what do you think people don't get about the country, don't get about India? What's the biggest like misconceptions about the place?
Oh man, so much. And I would love to put my hand on my heart and say that things have changed 20 years later, but my gut feeling is it probably hasn't changed much. I'm not gonna lie. Grade 5, again, grade 5, what are you? You're 10 years old. So I get the innocence and the lack of exposure, but it goes back to being in grade 5. Oh, you're from India, and I'm not joking. You go to school on an elephant, I'm like, oh, come on, come on. But no, it was an actual question. It's something I've seen and heard of in like in Hollywood movies, but until you're asked that question, you're like, what? But it's okay, because I mean the kid asking me was 10 years old. But then when I went back to the US, for college, I have been with Americans who, because it's a very insular country, again, I'm making a general statement here. Americans, by and large, don't travel as much as the Brits do, for example, or the Australians. They don't know. The average American doesn't know too much about the world outside, I picked up maps back in the day, not on the phone, like an actual map, and said, could you show me India? And this one poor girl in the cafeteria, she pointed to Paris, now it's just one person, but my point is the average Indian, due to so many factors, probably knows on a map where Chicago is smack in the middle, where New York, or the fact that New York and San Francisco are on two different sides of the continent. I mean, so many factors, the desire to ape America, the desire to want to go to America, Hollywood. The influence of America on India is far more than the influence of India on America, right? You know what I'm saying? So that's one reason. But then when I was working, a few months before I quit my job in that financial company, with one of my seniors, we were on the train together from work, and I showed her a picture of my most recent trip. It was the Himalayan mountain ranges with snow. And she's like, I thought all of India was like Rajasthan, just a desert. Now, she knew Rajasthan, but that's probably because all she'd seen in a movie or a TV show or on a postcard or on some documentary was 5 camels in the middle of the desert. So for a woman in her 40s in 2005 to be shocked that India had greenery, that India had mountains, snow-capped mountains, that to me was like, why is your view on the outside world so narrow? But it is what it is, right?
To your like personality, do you feel like 100% Indian, or like it's, I don't know, 70% Indian and then 30% American because of your roots and because of your experience in the US?
I would say, again, I've never had to give it a percentage. I would say 70% Indian, and the other 30% is because I don't think in Hindi. I still think in English. Now, whether you want to call that American or whatever, I leave that to interpretation. But let's just say it's 70% Indian because of how I speak, the people I'm interacting with, the kind of people that I make videos for, the kind of people that I've worked with when I was doing mainstream media. I would say 70%, but still, because of the upbringing, because of the memories of going to the US as a kid, and McDonald's, Walmart, Toys R Us, all those big, great, greedy American things. So I think probably I would say 70-30 would be a safe ratio to give you. Yeah. I have a lot of Indian friends who in many ways wanted to be more American than I did, and they went to America with a certain vision that they were not going to come back. They were going to pick up that American accent that you mentioned earlier. They were going to embrace the American culture. They were going to do whatever it took, because it's a big investment for the average Indian family to send a child to America for higher education. You don't just send them there, hey, get a degree and come back. The average Indian dream of the parent is that that kid stays on. So there are some of my really good Indian friends who were way more American, and unlike me, they spent 18, 19, 20 years. But for whatever reason, they're now back in India. I love asking them, they're going through this culture shock. And I'm talking about brown skinned Indians, unlike me, white and Indian, who in many ways were more Indian than me until a certain age. But once they went to America or Australia, they embraced that culture far more than I did. Like, their accents are actually American, but now they're back. It's their country of birth, but it's an alien nation for them. They've got kids who don't know Hindi or don't know one of the regional languages where they're staying. So when I ask them, they're like, man, it's crazy. They're not regretting it because they've made a choice, and they're getting paid good bucks because their company sent them there, and their wives have embraced the culture. But the things they say, I'm like, I wouldn't think twice, but oh, it's so hot here, or the pollution, or this and that, I'm like, see, it's because you've been away for so long. So it's almost like they're foreigners coming for the first time. So that always cracks me up.
What would be your advice to foreigners who want to understand India more overall?
Embrace it. It's going to be tough. I think it's become easier having spoken to certain other foreigners who've come down in the last few years. India has opened up so many ways. You get a lot of the Western perks here. So it's not the India of 20 years ago where it would have been more of a struggle for Westerners. I would just say, just be open. Easier said than done. Yes, the noise, the pollution, the poverty, the opulence, the over the top aspects of Indian life are going to hit you in the face from the time you exit the plane, pretty much. But if you're open to things, and I would just say embrace it, which is why I've liked watching, YouTubers like yourself and others who go around the world and who come, because I can assume the hardships or the shock that you're going to go through with, but the fact that so many of you just go for it, so I like to see things like that. And I wish anybody coming here, not someone who's just here for like a 3-day business conference, because they're going to be gone. They're going to be staying in a 7-star hotel. But someone who's here to try and learn something, someone who's here to travel, definitely someone who's been sent here on a 3-year post, either as a teacher or in the foreign service or in a banking or any aspect of life. If you're here for that duration, the sooner you open up your mind and shed your inhibitions, I'm telling you, it'll be a far more hospitable place to live, and you'll have a fun time living here.